Yo, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to a brand new video on the channel. Inside of today's video, we're going to be taking a look at 17 balance changes which are coming sometime next week. There's quite a few of them, which some of them might be surprising and some of them are going to be really good changes. But at least we get a good look of them now before they actually make it into the game next week. And that's why I've got a bad head, because literally as I woke up, I saw the changes. So we're going to be starting off with the nerfs, and starting off with 4 nerfs to Larry and Laurie again. So they've, for me, the best brawler in the game by far, and definitely if they're receiving 4 nerfs, the stats behind the scenes have to back it up. So the first nerf is going to be to their unload speed. It's going from 150 to 200. So this of course just means he can't spam out the attacks as quickly as he could before. So that's a 33% nerf. You're definitely going to feel this. I can feel it straight away. I don't think it's going to make him trash or change as drastically as Grom did in the past when he received that projectile speed nerf, but it's definitely a welcome change. Next is with the gadget. So order fallback, I think it's called. The healing has gone from 33% of the maximum HP from both of them to 25% healing. So again, this is a good change. The gadget was way too strong. It's an 8% nerf. It's not going to make the gadget terrible, but at least it tones it down a little bit. And then we have 2 nerfs to Laurie. So I think that's the big problem right now, is that Laurie is too good. He jukes so well, and he's received 2 nerfs. So reducing his shotgun damage from 600 damage to 300. So that's a 50% nerf. He's not going to be able to take you down nowhere near as much as before, but at least he'll maybe stop your health regen, and that can be pretty annoying. And the last one is with the reduced super gained from shotgun by 50%. So all in all, 4 nerfs to Larry and Laurie. I still expect them to be like an 80 brawler at least, but at least this is toning him down a lot more. Next, we have a nerf to Pearl. So her overcooked gadget is going from an extra 33% to 25% in damage. So again, another 8% nerf to Pearl. She's received a nerf to this overcooked gadget in the past. She's also received a HP nerf in the last set of balance changes. So she's still going to be pretty strong. Overcooked is a good gadget, but I don't think that's what's making her as meta as she is. She's still going to be a solid option in game modes like Knockout and Bounty. But yeah, I just feel like you're not going to be able to just hide in a bush and then run out and overcook someone to death. So at least that's a nice change. So next up, we have a nerf to Piper, and her HP is going from 4,800 at maximum level to 4,600. So just a 200 HP nerf, which we're kind of going the same route as Nani. Nani received a HP nerf a couple of updates ago, and of course both of them are big heavy hitters, especially both of them since receiving a damage buff in the past a couple of months ago. It's just leapfrogged them up the meta. So I'm not too sure how to feel about this. I guess it kind of makes sense. I don't want them to revert the damage buff just because both Piper and Nani were really lackluster before. They're supposed to be heavy hitters, heavy sharpshooters, because it's hard to hit the shots with them. So nerfing the HP, I guess, is a good move. So it makes them a little bit more vulnerable to aggression and maybe other sharpshooters. So I kind of like this change. Only 4% nerf though, so I don't think it's going to do all too much. But at least we're seeing Piper tone down a little bit. And lastly, on the nerf list, we have a nerf to Colette's hypercharge rate. It's going from 40% to 30%. So when we talk about literal numbers, it goes from 2.5 supers to get 1 hypercharge to 3.33 supers. So this is a nerf that a lot of brawlers got with the last set of balance changes a couple of weeks ago, and now Colette is getting the same treatment. So for me, Colette just cycled super so fast. As soon as you get 1 super with Colette, you can chain it so quick, especially if you use push it star power as well. So it's turning it down a little bit. It's going to take much longer to get her hypercharge in general, but still this doesn't affect when you actually activate the hypercharge. You're still going to be able to cycle a couple of supers in a row, and she's still going to be insane in heist because they've not nerfed the damage and stuff like that. It's just going to take a little bit longer to get that damage onto the high save. So for me, Colette's still going to be a really strong brawler. So now we're going to be moving on to the buffs, and there's 7 brawlers that are receiving buffs with the next set of balance changes. The first one is to Sam. So he's receiving 2 buffs. The first one to his Knuckle Buster's damage. It's going from 2,400 on impact to 2,800, which is a 16% damage buff. As you guys probably know, Sam has just been falling down in the meta ever since hyperchargers came out. You know, his fellow tanks, just tank counters, there's just so much that destroy him. He can't even get close to people. So at least when he gets close to people now, he does meaningful damage. I'm not too sure though, because a lot of brawlers are just getting damage buffs. So I don't know how that's going to play out in the long run. But for now, it's leading to a somewhat balanced meta. In terms of the other buff as well, I didn't really see the impact with it. They've slightly increased the super gain from impact with glove. I tested this out. It still takes 7 punches to get your knuckles back once you hit someone with it. So I'm not too sure. Maybe it impacts it when you miss your knuckles. But I've tried to do a few numbers tests, and I don't really see how this is a buff. But They said it's a buff, so it's a buff. So next on the buff list, we have B. Her maximum HP is going from 4,800 to 5,000. So she's kind of receiving the reverse of the Piper treatment because she's getting a 4% HP buff. So the tides might be turning in B's favor here. B has been an okay pick. I won't really say she's usable too much in this current meta. She's probably good on the time detonation modifier, but outside of that I don't really see her too often. She's okay in Brawl still, so she's like a balanced brawler, but she definitely needed a little bit of love. There's just still too many brawlers that overpower her, so a 4% HP buff will be helpful because if you pair this with the shield star power and also the shield gear, it's just going to make her a lot more tankier and a lot more of a threat. So next up, we have a buff to Max, and it was definitely needed. The HP is going from 6,000 to 6,600. So that's a 10% buff to Max's maximum HP. So I really like this because Max really did suffer in the meta. I think only the most skillful players could make a good Max composition work. But I won't really see Max whatsoever. Even on the quickfire modifier, Max wasn't even that strong. So just a HP buff is nice because I think the problem with Max is when they buff the damage, because you can just melt people with Max. Of course, having 4 pieces of ammo to go through with the run and gun star power, I think the damage is where they need to leave it alone. The HP is going to allow Max to be more aggressive, make more plays, combined with super and teammates. I think Max is going to be a much more meta brawler now. So next up, we have probably the most influential balance change I would predict, and it's with Carl's pickaxe damage. So it's going from 1,320 to 1,480. So this is a 12% damage buff. So one of the bigger buffs we will see. I think potentially this has the most impact on the meta, mainly because Carl is such a bad brawler right now, like D tier, C tier right now. He just gets cancelled out by so many brawlers. You just don't really feel his impact in the meta. And now with his 12% damage buff, he's going to be able to nearly deal 3,000 damage per pickaxe. Well, he can do that with the damage gear, so that's insane. I feel like he's going to just take down squishy brawlers so well, which he used to do in the past. And of course, in this meta, he wasn't able to do it. So now I feel like Carl's going to be at least a good last pick option, but it's not going to really like leapfrog him to like the top of the meta. So next we're moving on to 2 balance changes with Poco, and they're to both gadgets. So starting off with the tuning fork gadget, it's going from 592 healing per second for 5 seconds to 740. So in actual healing terms, it's going from 2,960 in total to 3,700. That's a 25% healing buff, but that's only for one person. Imagine the healing buff in total when you pair that with both your teammates in Brawl, when you're pairing that with Poco double tank. That's really going to help him out, and you're going to feel the difference. Oh, like that's over 700 healing extra you're going to get. That is a really nice buff. And the next one is with his protective tunes gadget. It's going from a 2-second debuff to a 4-second debuff. So that's a 100% increase in the amount of immunity you get. I think this might be pretty underrated. I feel like Poco is going to leapfrog up the meta a lot. Next up, we have 2 buffs to Bonnie. She definitely needed both of these. So starting off with the damage buff, it's going from 2,000 damage per attack to 2,240. So that's a 12% damage increase. I think this is a good change. I feel like they didn't like how fast Bonnie's projectile was, so of course I nerfed it. So it's a lot harder still to hit Bonnie shots, but when you do, it's a lot more rewarding. I feel like she might actually be somewhat of an okay pick in Heist again. I don't really see it being too strong outside of that, but then they increased her supercharge slightly, so you'll see it just in her cannon form. But I think the only difference this makes is if you use a Wisdom 2 star power, you're able to charge your super in 3 shots instead of 4, which again, you're not really going to hit many people with Wisdom 2. Maybe you do. Maybe some people will start trying that star power. I don't think it's going to make the biggest of differences, but Bonnie with 2 buffs, it's going to help her out a little bit. And lastly, for all the balance changes, we're going to be finishing off with Byron. His damage slash healing is going from 680 per ammo to 760. That is an 11% buff to his healing and damage combined. I feel like Byron has always been somewhat of an underrated brawler. People sleep on him a little bit, and now with this 11% buff, I really feel like Byron should finally be able to make an impact on the meta. Surely, right? He's been receiving so many buffs, mainly because Hypercharge just screws him over, but maybe with this 11% buff, he's able to pair with tanks pretty well. He's able to be somewhat of a decent sniper. Again, I think the big problem is he's still pretty easy to counter, but at least he's able to make more of an impact himself, right? So that's going to be it for today's video, guys. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what balance changes you think will make the biggest impact. Of course, there's some brawlers that definitely needed some love, like Hank and Frank, but maybe they're just needing some bigger reworks in the future. So I'm glad these changes were definitely needed. I think they're pretty good balance changes overall. They're not going to completely change the meta, but it's got at least going to make some of these brawlers a lot more of a viable pick. I think this meta is going to be pretty balanced still. So that's going to be it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. And I'll see you guys next time.